See? Couldn't keep her hands off me.
I was quite happy to be the resident sex symbol. I enjoyed being sexy.
Have you got any martial arts and that, like skills, because you're Asian?
Political correctness is killing, you know, the larrikin. What will Australians be without our humour?
Anything relating to rooting, I'll try and answer your question.
Free speech is critical. When did we lose the ability to have a good old rumble?
I was in the cockpit where the captain was sucked out.
That's not larrikinism, that's just bullying. That's just nasty. That's just, you know, not even trying hard.
No one cares about you in 1995 if you're normal.
Comics aren't the problem. Comics are part of the solution. People go to a comedy show to see this stuff.
Alright, happy endings, are you ready for some comedy? I can't hear you, are you ready for some comedy?
When people are coming to your shows, what are they expecting to see or hear?
Me. I'll be there.
Good.
Don't want to give any spoilers. I will be there. Some people don't always appreciate that. Some people just want the animals.
Please welcome Emma Malik.
For comedian Emma Malik, being funny in Australia these days has become a very serious business.
My ex, he used to call me Little Galah, right? And I just assumed, right, it was because I was pink and cute and enjoyed nibbling on his nuts.
See, I'm torn. When I write material and I think, oh God, this could be offensive to someone, I don't do it. And that's because my generation, and I don't want to go there. I was like, oh my God, let's do pet names, yay. I was like, you're little koala, because he had grey hair, made complete sense. A fuzzy chest, and I gave him chlamydia, which is cleared up, Thomas, it's cleared, you are good to go, sir. Now it just seems to be, you can't do anything in some people's eyes. So, and those people, please don't come to my stand-up shows. I just want to be able to find the funny in things.
For me, growing up in Australia, funny was all about the larrikin sense of humour. It was the great leveller, which liked nothing more than to thumb its nose at the establishment. No target was too high, no joke too raunchy. There were many who gave voice to it, chief among their number, Paul Hogan.
I reckon it's a crime for a top sort like yourself to sit here drinking alone. Why don't you let me brighten up your dull little life and buy you one, eh?
No, thank you. I pay for my own drinks.
Well, that's a come on if ever I heard one, eh? Listen, girlie, this is the permissive age. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's you and I go and do our own thing. See? Couldn't keep her hands off me.
Hogs was a larrikin, but he was a classy larrikin.
Yeah, good acting, Dill.
And he had a very healthy sense of disregard for people that we probably all had a healthy sense of disregard for. And so I think it was welcomed at the time. Australia was emerging as adopting its own identity in politics and advertising.
Oh, and you're going to have to learn to say good-day.
Hogs the larrikin became Hogs the ambassador.
G'day, Paul.
G'day, love.
Selling Australia to the world.
Oh, g'day. They've asked me over from Oz to introduce you all to Foster's Draft. And here it is.
And he just happened to be in the right place at the right time and honest enough to own it.
Have we lost that sense of honest larrikinism?
Yep.
Is the larrikin lost?
Roll them up.
To try and find out, we've invited some familiar faces.
Talk about memories.
And funny people to join us.
Who wants to watch this stupid show?
As we trawl through the vaults to find out what's become of our classic Aussie humour.
You know, I reckon I might be a bit of a nutcase. Nothing serious, just every now and then some sort of fleeting mental aberration. I say that's a very nice see-through I'm getting.
Oh, I didn't think anyone would notice. I've been wearing it for days and nobody said a thing.
And that's a very nice pair of breasts you're wearing too.
Oh, do you like them?
What did you make of the larrikinism within things like Alvin Purple, Paul Hogan? Was that legitimate humour for its time?
Yes, and quintessential is the key word there.
But it wasn't like that at all, was it? Nah. Gee, you got nice tits.
What all of those examples you gave had in common was that they were looking at Australian culture. We were changing as a society, and I think what Barry Humphries was doing in Barry Mackenzie, for example, was that this was Australian culture.
There's her! Jesus, good to see you, Curl. Hey, what's this? What's this with the head? Look like a hippie poof. Get out of it.
All those words that we dare not say anymore, that's a document of that era.
Barry!
That's a document of an old Australia coming to grips with a new Australia. You know, in that first scene, he's having a go at redheads, homosexuals. Also, I mean, that's the way people spoke.
It was the time of peace, love, not war. The early 70s and the larrikin was on the loose. Take us back to the kind of 70s, 80s, 90s. What was the...
You mean when Delvene Delaney, who looked really hot in those shorts and down to here and the blokes are big... I mean, the silliness of those days where, you know, you could take the mickey, those days...
The criticism of the characters you played in the Paul Hogan show, from a feminist point of view, I guess, would be that it was objectifying women. Would you accept that criticism?
No, I was quite happy to be the resident sex symbol. I enjoyed being sexy. Why not? I don't see that. I never ever felt disempowered. And on reflection, still don't.
Delvene Delaney was 23 years old when she auditioned for a role on the Paul Hogan show. Its larrikin creators were about to find a soulmate.
They just had me on as a guest and then asked if I could, can you play a prostitute? Yep, I can play a prostitute. Can you do a nun? Yep, can do a nun. Anything at all, I just nodded my head vigorously to, whether I even thought I could or not, because it was such an opportunity to be on that show.
How much fun was that period?
It was great. It was 9 years of absolute incredible fun. It was liberating. And they were both really welcoming and, you know, John had his eye on me anyway, so...
John Cornell got the girl, and together they made lots of great TV with the one-time Harbour Bridge rigger. And they did it in relative freedom. Back then, there was no political correctness, no social media pile-ons. Delvene says for them, it was all just about making people laugh.
I can get by without Keeny talk. I can get by without much of a brain. I can get by without my legs. I can't really get by with my legs.
When we see Delvene Delaney, for example, I can survive without my legs, I can survive without a brain. Did that upset you?
I suppose what that says to me, there was only one type of woman in those humours. The blonde joke. They have no brain. They're stupid.
I can get by without much of a brain. That one?
Yes, I love that sketch.
I don't even know. Is there a slight hint that she looks uncomfortable delivering that? I like to think so. That's more the sort of thing where the only role that a woman could have was to be a moron.
Would you see that character as being offensive to girls or women?
No, I wouldn't. Everybody loved it. Everybody loved the fact that things were said that were, you know, sometimes other people wouldn't say them. It was just funny and, you know, take a check on yourself kind of thing. And we've kind of lost that take a check on yourself because we don't want to be disliked. Everybody wants to be liked. It's all about the likes. Yeah.
I can get by without much of a brain.
It could never, ever happen today. That type of humour would never happen today. Delvene knew exactly what she was doing. She's a really, really smart woman. Hogues and Strop, it was like reverse sexism. They were making idiots out of themselves, except a lot of people sort of, today don't get that. They can't think the third step along.
The larrikin loves taking that third step. They like nothing more than to push the boundaries, to test the limits. And this, of course, is the great paradox of humour. How we engage with comedy is often very personal. What I find funny, you may hate, and vice versa. So was the Paul Hogan show simply making fun of a blonde Sheila? Or were the larrikins laughing at themselves?
Surprise, Hoagie!
You did laugh for a second. Love it.
Mum says that cooking for a man on a regular basis usually leads to more lasting relationships.
Oh, yeah. well, if that's the case, maybe I should have got engaged to Ronald McDonald.
I never ever felt exploited. I mean, let's be honest. It was just oh God. At least it was honest back in the day. But we're a bit afraid to express our real opinions now because everything's so judgmental. Everything's out there on Facebook and people have a go at you and, you can't actually say what you feel without fear of being attacked.
You wish the tone of the evening would improve, so it's going to. There's something I try on women and it's foolproof.
Barry Humphries was another Aussie larrikin.
This is consideration for you. You know what I say to a girl who I might have just met? I say, see, I got these in my pocket.
Together with his cultural attaché, Sir Les Patterson, he took his humour to the world stage.
Could you use one of these? That's what I say. Yes, sir? I say, could you really? Now, now, what she says...
Let's take a gag like Sir Les Patterson. So he pulls out a tampon in a crowd.
I thought that was really funny. I mean, look, okay, it's wrong humour, but I mean, look, but there's been so much wrong humour since then.
Now, if she says, "Oh no, thank you," you've eliminated a major stumbling block.
I think the difference between Australian larrikin humour, let's say, and other humour is it's not mean-spirited. You can still make a joke about something. Aussie humour's never been mean-spirited. It's always just been fun,
Was that legitimate comedy?
Yeah, I thought that was a poor joke, and that's as far as I'll go in criticising him. And in his defence, I'll say that he's sending up an old-style sort of Aussie ocker in Sir Les. So let me also say, if we thought it was okay to pull a tampon out of a cigarette, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Come fly with me, let's fly away.
Guess what happened to me last week? What?
This was a favourite of mine.
Fast forward to the 1980s, and a new breed of larrikin humour was hitting our screens. Nothing was off limits.
Could you imagine that going to air today?
Ran out of your favourite henna? No, worse even than that, stupid. Give up. I was in the cockpit where the captain was sucked out.
Can you see that being made today, or would you laugh today in front of, say, a large audience at that joke?
Only if two gay guys were doing it.
Right, fair enough.
Inadvertently, I must have sat right down on a lever. I didn't notice.
And in those days, the guy, but it was their humour in the sense that they were both thinking they were so funny, and it was the words that were funny, not the fact that they were being effeminate. It's their writing that was making each of them almost burst into laughter. But you could never get away with that these days, unless it was two gay guys taking the mickey out themselves.
The heart of larrikinism has always been about taking the mickey. We saw it in our films, in our TV shows, and it was also reflected in our ads. I know this well, because I used to work in the advertising industry for many years.
that Sam Worthington, you know?
It's not, it's Joel Edgerton.
Joel Edgerton, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Does my bum look big in this?
Yeah, but at least it takes the focus off your face.
Dare to be yourself.
And I'll tell you an interesting story there, James, because I actually directed that ad.
Okay.
And on the day of the shoot, Joel Edgerton said, I'm not going to do this ad because it's offensive to women. The actress, Amanda Bishop, terrific actress, she was quite happy because she was playing a role. But the male actor, who has gone on to have a huge career in Hollywood, said, I can't do this because it'll damage my career. That was the first time back in 1997 I became aware of political correctness.
Right.
When did you become aware of political correctness?
Well, Rowan, I don't know whether this will just, play into your views of, stereotypical views of me. My mother gave me a copy of The Female Eunuch. So...
Fantastic.
So I think I was a young feminist. So feminism is, if I wanted to talk to a woman, I had to be a feminist.
Radio broadcaster James Valentine recently wrote a newspaper article about larrikin humour. He's clearly not a fan.
We weren't that larrikin. This notion that we were sort of everyone's cocking their snoot, I think that's what you do, at authority, that there was this sort of rich vein of all of this sort of stuff going on all the time is kind of rubbish. I have a strong sense that the larrikinism of that past was male, quite bullying, and was directed against everybody else except themselves. The notion that Australians can laugh at themselves. Oh, yeah? Tell me the joke that where the white male is the punchline.
He's gonna do it again! I hate authority!
Paul Fenech began his comedy career in the age of political correctness.
That's what you call a fongering.
It strikes me that rather than being intimidated by political correctness, you are actually using it to create more humour. Would that be true?
It's probably a step further. I actually use it as fuel. I hate political correctness. I don't like what it's doing to lots of different parts of society, just personally.
G'day, my name's Shazza Jones, and this is my list of things that are un-Australian. Not wearing thongs or Ugg boots, being politically correct. Come on! That's un-Australian. Off your Ugg boot.
So I just like fighting it as hard as I can. All my shows are getting more and more politically incorrect.
Having a go at people on a pension, that's un-Australian.
I'm already on the disability. I don't want to really be bloody disabled.
Tell me the joke where the larrikin is actually the punchline, where their own absurdities are revealed or something like that. Oh, the punchline's okay if it's the Aborigine, the woman, the migrant, young people, old people, disabled people, all other religions except their own, etc., etc. All that's fine, but that's not larrikinism. That's just bullying. That's just nasty. That's just not even trying hard.
I think, look, the concept of, let's say, political correctness in terms of making things fair for people, say in the workplace and all that, that's fine. But you don't touch humour. You've got to leave humour alone.
And you just put little witches' hats around them and use them as a speed bump. We don't want you to pull back, but, maybe I'll go, oh, what, that's so fiery.
I have been nicely asked to speak about my old mate, William Malik.
It's cruel to be able to kind of tell people what you can and can't laugh at.
Political correctness is a poison that attacks the sense of humour.
Did political correctness kill your dad?
Let's just say...
Of all the larrikins I have met or admired, Bill Leak was one of the best. He was a brilliant cartoonist. Here hangs his work. He was also a mate of mine. But towards the end of his life, his cartooning caused him much grief. His larrikin spirit was in danger of being crushed because, as he put it, political correctness is the enemy of creativity.
Bill lived and breathed cartooning. It's what he wanted to do. He was clever in brilliant in so many ways. loved to make people laugh, but he also loved to make people think.
But this evening, for my sins, I have been nicely asked to speak a few well-chosen words about my old mate, William Malik.
It was a balmy Sydney night, and Sir Les Patterson was in full flight. He was the guest speaker at a book launch for his great mate, Bill Leake.
But Bill's Australia's Rembrandt. He's our Warhol, our Jeff Koons. And I was absolutely gobsmacked to hear he also drew cartoons.
2 days later, the cartoonist died.
I could not be at the book launch, and just watching that just open it all up, and he was alive on the screen, and he was a larrikin. Found that very, very difficult to watch, and he was alive, and I can't even think about it. It's just
Do you miss Bill Leake?
Oh, very much so. And he rang me from the book launch and he said, "Oh, mate, I wish you were here." And I said, "I wish I was there." And, I couldn't be there. And I just thought, I'll catch up with him, and never got to speak with him again.
Now, I know that it's International Women's Day, so I think the first thing I should do is apologise for not being a woman.
Like father, like son. Johannes Leake would also grow up to be a cartoonist. Do you now find political correctness a subject for cartooning and for humour, to attack it?
Yes, I think that's the natural... political correctness is a force that is trying to contain and restrict your expression. And if you have the sort of spirit that my dad certainly did, anywhere you feel that, you push back against it. It's a reflex.
Political correctness is a poison that attacks the sense of humour.
Bill Leake's book was called Trigger Warning. It was a collection of his recent work, cartoons that were often viewed as being politically incorrect.
Did political correctness kill your dad?
No, well, let's just say that my dad carried a lot of stress, but I don't think he'd ever carried that much stress before. Because, trust me, there are people out there who it was more than satisfaction when they heard about my dad dying. I mean, the voices on Twitter, they were out there cheering.
Bill grew up in a working-class family. He was a larrikin of the left, but in his later years, his politics changed.
He was never a centrist thinker. It was either this or this. He was passionate about everything. But, in his early cartooning days, he was very much a champion of the left. But then in time, that all sort of changed, and it went the other way.
Somewhere along the line, the left became censorious. The left stopped laughing. They got really worried about what you could and couldn't laugh about. They embraced identity politics. They embraced political correctness.
For your chronic PC sufferer, feeling offended is about as good as it gets.
That offence went global in 2015. Following the terrorist attack on the office of the French satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo, Bill Leake drew a cartoon.
We decided not to show that cartoon, despite it being easily found on the internet. The reason being because of the grief it caused Bill Leake and his family at the time. To show it again could risk more of the same. At issue was Bill drawing a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad. ISIS was furious.
Bloodthirsty barbarians aren't immune to political correctness, and their delicate sensibilities are just as easily offended as those of any precious little snowflake you'll find in a gender studies faculty at the university.
His cartoon earned him a fatwa from ISIS and a social media pile-on in Australia.
When you do a cartoon depicting the Prophet Muhammad as a response to what happened at the Charlie Hebdo offices, and then next thing you've got a fatwa put out on you by ISIS terrorists, you realise that something very strange has happened, and you're not getting backed in by the left anymore. It's the left who are saying, well, you shouldn't have done that. That's what serves you right. You know, you can't insult these people. You can't offend them.
Cartooning it should be a fun job. If someone said to you, if people say, so what do? You sit down and you draw pictures of the Prime Minister, and yeah, funny picture, that's what I do. Wow, what a job. I mean, it should be fun. You shouldn't have to have a fatwa. You shouldn't have to have some Twitter troll drumming up, scores of people to have a sort of Twitter fatwa on you, if you like. And it was such a sad thing to see.
Bill Leak was under attack, but there was worse to come. Do you think, in the instance of Bill Leak, that political correctness went too far?
I loved Bill Leak. I met him a few times, had some, excellent conversations with him. Fantastic guy. Did have that sort of broad Aussie kind of feel that was endearing as well. I think, like anyone, he can get it wrong. And I think that cartoon is an example of getting it wrong.
This is that cartoon. It's Bill Leak's response to the 2016 Four Corners story on the Dondale Detention Centre in the Northern Territory.
It's underpinned by sympathy, actually, because it's about a child. In this instance, an Aboriginal child who's the victim of neglect. And he said something that immediately made people believe that he was tarring an entire section of the Australian community with the same brush, but he wasn't at all.
It created a firestorm on social media, with many accusing him of being a racist.
If in the 21st century you're a white person about to make a joke about Indigenous Australia, about immigrants, about women or whatever, well, you better have a pretty good observation to make, and you better contain all of the background that you're commenting on in that. And I don't think Bill quite got there with that one.
In the course of this, as social media became more bitter, and it was more toxic and more poisonous. It took a lot of the fun out of Bill. He was no longer as jovial and sort of g'day mate, let's go down to the pub at Larrikin. And that he was losing a lot of that because this had taken the fun out of it.
People, these days everybody's sitting on Facebook and somebody circulates a cartoon. They don't circulate anything about the context of it. It just says, racist cartoon by Bill Leak. And everybody looks and goes, well, that's pretty mean. What a scumbag, and they made his life utterly miserable and terribly stressful, and they all of us lived through that, and it was a really harrowing time, and it ended tragically.
How often have we all heard those words, you can't say that, or even more tellingly, you can't say that anymore? I cross that line regularly, and this always happens. I've become a lightning rod for social media outrage, often personal, always nasty, and it's simply because I say what I think, even if it's just a joke. Yet in the Australia I grew up in, the larrikin Australia of the 70s and 80s, we were all proud to speak our minds, to call a spade, as long as we did it with a sense of humour. How much have you felt you need to rebel against political correctness?
Just if I'm having a really cheeky day. If I'm on Studio 10 and I'm having a cheeky day and something like that comes up, I can't resist it. Those woke people.
A case in point was last October, when Extinction Rebellion protesters took to the streets in Melbourne.
Kerri-Anne, jail time? Is this a bit extreme?
Oh, no. No,
really?
Kerri-Anne couldn't help herself.
Nobody should do anything, leave them there, and you just put little witches' hats around them and try, or use them as a speed bump.
Kerri-Anne, God, you're going to get us into trouble.
Send your letters to the Today Show.
Look, is that wrong? It was a joke, something I said that I thought was funny, that I thought was a joke, but everybody else who didn't think it was a joke and didn't think it was funny are perfectly entitled to rail against it. Be completely vicious, that's another thing.
And vicious they were. The social media hunters had Kerri-Anne in their sights.
There will always be an echelon of people who don't really know you and really want to play darts, and it would seem most of those people use social media. And it's very powerful, but it's also not as big as the silent majority. So, silent majority, could you just speak up a little bit? Just a little bit more? Thanks. It'd be very helpful.
Do you self-censor when you're on air now after that experience?
Very rarely.
Good.
They really pray I do. They really go, now, maybe just, we don't want you to pull back, but, maybe I'll go, oh, what, that's so fire-me. Really?
I've been on media for 30 or 40 years, and I can tell you now, not everyone likes me, and that's part of the gig. And if you say an opinion that is going to be, that is strong, is inflammatory, and you say it in ways that are inflammatory, I'm not quite sure why you're surprised that there's not a pile-on.
Good evening, folks. Vince Sorrenti. Tolerance. That's the buzzword for the day. Tolerance. 1995 is International Year of Tolerance.
Vince Sorrenti is another who's made a career out of joking around. But he too has been subjected to an online onslaught.
This year, no one cares what you think unless you're a solar-powered vegetarian lesbian whale.
In 1995, he performed this on Hey Hey It's Saturday.
International Year for the completely normal, white, heterosexual, fully employed, meat-eating, football-going, burping, farting, bloke and Sheila. I was very impressed with that routine.
I thought
that's 25 years ago.
I saw you chuckling away there.
I could do that today. I did that routine. I can remember there was an incident about a decade ago, and some writer, he obviously had a few drinks, and he completely misread it. He thought I was having a go at homosexuals and women, and
that they weren't normal is the woke logic.
He just completely
twisted it around.
Yeah, he didn't see the satire.
Yeah.
Brilliant genius he was. Wrote a piece about it, and their warriors just attacked my website, and it was horrendous. And I thought, my God, based on one person's opinion, wrong opinion of what I was trying to say. So I really felt that that vilification very strongly. It was an appalling time.
If you're starting at the point of absurdity...
For those close to Bill Leak, the social media campaign against the cartoonist was just as appalling.
As the senses of humour of people suffering from PC atrophy, their sensitivity to criticism becomes more and more acute until they get to the stage where everything offends them and they lose the ability to laugh entirely.
Bill always said that political correctness was harder to deal with than a fatwa.
Well, that's right, because that's the fatwa. You know that there are these mad people out there, but in your own country, we're not talking about offending a whole faith. This is just bonkers. And there are these people who are put in positions where they can pontificate, and look down at what is acceptable and what isn't. And a cartoon is going to be unacceptable to someone every day. That's the whole point of the thing. It pokes fun at things, and it's a crying shame. It's cruel to be able to kind of tell people what you can and can't laugh at. That's crazy. That's it's insidious.
Heroes should be celebrated. Heroes should be celebrated, remembered, and treasured, you know, and he went from national treasure to national pariah in the space of about 12 hours. But I certainly will take opportunities to remember him with the people that remember him well and that love his memory the way that I do.
Nah, she won't piss on you.
Have we lost sight of the fact that it's just jokes?
Yes.
Remember, they're just jokes.
The fact that a contemporary comedian needs to think about where they're going to aim the joke, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
The humour's not allowed. Political correctness is killing the larrikin.
Guess what? I'm wearing no knickers.
Comics aren't the problem. Comics are part of the solution. People go to a comedy show to see this stuff.
Let's have a laugh at your expense, shall we? Remember, they're just jokes. We're all going to die soon, and there's no sequel.
Have we lost sight of the fact that it's just jokes?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you bring that back, that idea?
Yes. And cut. I personally, my opinion, some people may believe or look too much into the joke.
Hi, I'm Emma Malik. I used to train animals for movies, but after following through on a dare, I found myself becoming a stand-up comedian.
It's just a joke. For comedians like Emma Malik
Yeah, she might pee on you because she just woke up.
and Paul Fenech, finding the fun in comedy now is not always easy.
Yeah.
It's my good hat. I'm going to be upset if I piss on my good hat. But
I didn't
I
realise.
really would be pissing by animals. I would have bought the bad hat.
No, she won't piss on you.
It's just part of our society. It's part of our interaction. And I think one of the reasons people have been becoming meaner and it's getting tougher out there, more miserable, is because the humour's not allowed. Political correctness is killing, the larrikin and just Aussie humour. And once you take that out, what are we going to be? Just a bunch of, I don't know, what will Australians be without our humour? I don't know what we'll be.
Just want to take on the pizza guys, huh? Well, bring it on, mate! Bring it on!
Paul Fenech has been working hard at making people laugh for more than 20 years.
Look at that fat mole over there. You're not even a fat mole, are you?
From fat pizza to housos, he's never been afraid to push the boundaries.
Who would have thought tagging his rock would be easier than tagging a train?
I was actually had more complaints when I worked inside SBS. Our first seasons of Fat Pizza were made internally, and I'd have other staff members accuse me of being misogynist and all this, and I was like, how can you say the show's misogynist? The characters love women, they're chasing women, they're horny for women.
Habibi, my God, you're going to be late for your own wedding! Come on, my God!
Oh, jeez. Doesn't Tula look beautiful on her wedding day?
And one of my favourite characters of yours is, of course, Tula. So she's fat, she's ethnic, she's stupid, she's crazy, she's greedy. She just is a wonderful character played by Rebel Wilson.
Tula!
Oh my God, Habibi. Once when I broke up with you, he was my rebound route.
You bitch! Him? You slut!
But what was I thinking?
Were you nervous about that character?
No, I'm always too busy to be nervous. I mean, I always have open castings. I love sort of just finding weird gems among society who have that performance gene,
Like, you've got food. What'd you order a pizza for?
No, because Paulie, my God, it's for my cravings. Like, ever since my pregnancy went into the trimesters, my God.
She had that great ability to kind of be funny, and even, from day one, and it's obviously taken her all around the world.
Paul Fenech now spends much of his time on the road, performing live.
How's it going, legends?
His shows are raucous and rude, and dare I say it, a little bit larrikin.
I love going out to kind of rural country venues because people are just there, they want to drink, they want to have a laugh, and it's sort of, to me, it's the environment for Aussie humour. Everyone just gets loose. People lose their inhibitions. We try and sort of encourage the audience is involved a lot. There's all sorts of stuff that's probably, you know, would send the far left out of their minds knowing what I do on stage. But I don't think many have come, so so far I've been safe. Maybe not after this interview.
Who really has the right to decide what you can and what you can't say? I think that's something that only you can. And if you are going to be malicious, then don't do it. But no one can decide what all of us can and can't say.
Emma loves working with animals. She uses them frequently in her comedy routine, and they come in all shapes and sizes.
I mean, I don't want to offend Finn. Am I offending Finn people by getting a stick insect out? Like,
Tell us her name.
This is Susan. Look at her. Susan is my nemesis on stage because she's thinner than me.
But for 30-something Emma, the real enemy is political correctness. Do you see in other Australian comics areas that you wouldn't go to? Or do they see in your work areas that they go, hang on, Emma, you're saying that?
No comedian ever says, oh, you can't say that. It's not like, go over, do it, try it. It'd be my civilian friends who say, no, you can't say that. And I'll be very confused. For example, yesterday I was just telling a friend that I had left her leftover food in the Chinese container. She said, you can't say that. And by the way, this isn't a joke. Like, oh yeah, I left my food in no. She said, you can't say that. I said, say what? She said, Chinese container. Okay. And she went, it's a takeaway container. She's not Chinese, by the way. She's as white as you and I. Like, and I was just like, okay, so now that's going on in my head. And I want to make a joke about that. But then, God, will it be offensive if I make a joke about that? Will I... no. I feel like we have to rip the Band-Aid off and just do it. Maybe I'll do a show just of all the things that I want to say. And deep down, they're actually not offensive. No one will walk out if I use the punchline Chinese container.
Is it confusing for young people to know what they can joke about?
The fact that a contemporary comedian needs to think about where they're going to aim the joke, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You know, like it's... and the fact that you're going to have to think through how this joke might affect people hearing it, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's probably going to give rise to a better joke. I think if once you've thought about those sort of things, then you might have to go a bit further. You might have to work a bit harder.
Today is like a big day. Ah!
What's that noise you hear?
I'm like fully getting my bum waxed. Ah! Yeah, so we can be like so smooth together on a honeymoon night.
Not the other cheek.
Do you think people are coming to your live shows to escape political correctness?
Look, I think there is a turn away from political correctness, and I can qualify that by saying, you know, that the last season of Pizza that we did was, you know, I just said, you know what, I'm just going for it. They can pull the episode, I don't care, I'm just going to write it. And we just did so many things that I thought, you know, there were going to be trolls galore, you know, showing the clip, and there'd be a news article saying this Fenech, it's disgusting what he's done. But nothing. I was just sort of waiting. I was going, and I just had lots of people going, oh, that was funny, Paul, you liked it, it was good, it was, you know, great, good work. And I was going, where's the trolls, you know?
Would today's larrikin be fighting against political correctness?
I think, yeah, so I suppose I react to a notion that political correctness is shutting things down, in that I have a sense of political correctness simply pointing out that making jokes about someone's race is not very funny. So I'm always a bit befuddled by people saying, oh, this political correctness is terrible. I go, yeah, so political correctness delivers ramps instead of stairs for disabled people. Are you uncomfortable with that? But it allows the person in the wheelchair to get into the building. Whereas before that, the person in the wheelchair was meant to stay at home.
Guess what? I'm wearing no knickers. From now, no knickers for me.
Time and again, we see through those clips we've been looking at, is that, you know, a little guy struggling to do better, isn't that the essence of comedy, a lot of comedy?
Yeah, because it's true. That's not always correct, but sometimes that's what you're making fun of. And particularly in that in that no knickers ad. These days, if we see a male model parading in Calvin Klein's, I'm sure there'd be guys who'd feel uncomfortable about that, but that's okay.
So now I'm wearing no knickers. I'm as comfortable as can be.
While not a fan of political correctness, Vince Sorrenti nonetheless believes the larrikin of yesteryear needed to change.
I'm honestly wearing no knickers.
Look, there's no doubt in my mind that the way we thought 20 and 30 years ago was not right, and the pendulum did have to swing. But it has swung too far, and that's equally not right. I mean, there's a whole generation of audience that have missed out on some great comedy, as far as I'm concerned. Comics aren't the problem. Comics are part of the solution.
That's
true. People go to a comedy show to see this stuff, to air the dirty linen, to get this stuff out there. People feel more comfortable about these issues when they're being talked about, when they're being humorised.
Hey, if you can say 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun in 4 seconds, you'll witness autographed McDonald's World Series cricket poster free.
Some of Hoag's sketches, for example, where he's pretending to be Viv Richards or a cricketer, involved putting makeup on, dark makeup. That would now be condemned as blackface and a terrible thing to do, and you'd be hounded by social media. Is that correct?
He was never malicious, Hoag's. He was always good-natured. But, we're so far down that political correctness burrow now that I don't think you can go back.
It's simple. Just say 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Are there any scenes that you now feel were inappropriate?
Possibly.
Such as?
Well, if you look back at it now, which is a bit of a jaundiced eye in a way, because you're comparing generations ago, 40 years ago. But yes, probably sexist, fattest, and you wouldn't be able to say those things now, but it doesn't mean to say that people don't think or feel those things now. So the political correctness is about not speaking up, not saying what you truly feel because you're going to be judged. And there has to be a modicum of that in society to keep things civil. You can't walk around saying things that are unflattering to people. But the thing about larrikinism was that it was never malicious. It was good-natured and good-humoured, and it was a send-up of things. It was meant to make us laugh at ourselves more than at each other.
Have you got any martial arts and that, like skills, because you're Asian?
Nah, but I can pretend and make them man guys shit themselves, mate.
Yeah, just stick close to me, man.
We need humour. We need our Aussie humour to stay, at least, you don't need to be racist or completely sexist, but Aussie humour's not about that. I think it's just about being able to call it as it is, and you just have a laugh. You don't hold any grudges afterwards, That's what I love about it. It's just it's so simple.
A lot of humour in the past has been used to pop the bubble of authority, to poke fun at authority and authority figures. Is political correctness the new authority that people are poking fun at?
I don't think they're quite game to yet, and that's why I think comedy is in a lot of trouble. Comedy has definitely changed. Comedians, are thinking twice about, which audience am I going to use that for? You've got to pick an audience for certain types of jokes now.
Thank you very much. My name's Emma Malik.
These are challenging times for comedians like Emma Malik. The business of being a comic is tough, but she has no intention of giving up.
I don't know where comedy's heading, but I'm going to try and make comedy that I enjoy. And I'm going to really try not to please everyone, and just hope that those people who don't like what I do or what any comedians do don't make it their business to tell us that we're wrong, because we're all learning what's happening at the moment.
Bye.